Alright, then I guess we're gonna start now. So, today we're gonna talk about communication. About the whole thing, we're gonna start off with explaining what communication is. We're gonna explain what is important, what isn't important. Then we go over to how do we use that to the max, like to the maximum, how do we use the structure in there. Then we also go over to the roles, different roles that communication has, like what who does and why and blah 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 blah, and so on. So the first question is, of course, why is communication so important? That's a pretty obvious question, right, guys? Right. So, um, it's like the most important.
What the fuck, stop.
Oh my god. Yes, that's perfect. All right. So, the most important thing is communication, and it's also the hardest thing that you ever have because it's so big and so complicated. Because it's always an interaction between multiple human, and that can get quite rough, as we probably all know from playing solo queue. So yeah. First of all, it's the most important thing, and that's the thing you're never gonna stop learning on, because you're never gonna be perfect at it. And that's also a thought you should always have in your mind, because it's gonna take a while till you're good at it, until your team has like the structure that the team needs for the communication. So never forget that. So yeah. The communication is basically sharing information with each other with words and your voice. So every information is very important, and you should keep nothing for yourself, basically. If it's someone missing, or even if it's just cooldowns, it's always pretty important to share them. Because you guys aren't connecting your head, sadly. We're pretty good, but you aren't connecting your head, so you gotta make the connection through words. And that's what you gotta learn as a team. So first of all, you all gotta know that nothing is meaningless. Like, every information counts, and every information is important due to we have to share them so everyone knows. Even a lot of things I see so far in a lot of teams is that they see something on the map, but they don't say it because they think, hey, they can look at the map themselves, right? They know, but it doesn't matter. You should still say it. So that's what I mean with like nothing is meaningless. Even if you think they should know and they do know, you still want to say it. So just to have it have it said. And a lot of things you shouldn't just say once. You should also say them like multiple times. Like, most infos you should just say twice or three times, depending on what it is or like how important and stuff, so you guys know. So we have nothing is meaningless. Like, every information is there and should be said and used, and then that's like pretty important, especially in like 2v2 situations, 3v3s, or even 5v5s. Calling out cooldowns as a team is also pretty big. So let's say Tristana W'd already in the fight in the 2v2 on bot lane, then you can say, yo, she has no W. Or someone used a pretty important damage spell, so the trade goes on. And all that stuff is pretty important to say. Because that, like, if the other person maybe didn't see it, then he knows from that point on. It's also pretty important to know when to talk, and when to talk is basically always. Because let's say in a team fight you died, that doesn't mean you now shut up and say nothing anymore. Because when you're dead, you have to focus on nothing else than seeing a team fight. So you don't have mechanics, you don't have your own skill shots, anything. You can just focus on seeing the team fight and telling your team, yo, this guy, blah, blah, blah. And so on. Because then you have like the best choices and your team probably listens to you, right? Exactly. So this is basically the part about the communication so far. Do you guys understood everything I said?
Until now, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, if you ever have a question, or if you think I spoke too fast, because I tend to do that a lot, then just, stop me and say, oh, can you repeat that, or can you explain it better, or whatever. I want to do it then. So that was basically the first part about explaining communication. So now we know that communication is like, talking about stuff, sharing information, that nothing is meaningless. Everything is important because we all need to know everything. So then we go over to the how do we use the communication to the max, and how do we like build a structure around it. Because structure is very important to get the team into a routine of communication. And if the team has a routine of communication, everything gets easier because then you don't have to force the communication every game, and it becomes much more natural from time to time. And when communication becomes more natural, you like naturally speak about the stuff happening, then it takes much less focus than it now, as example, takes. So yeah, that's what we want to focus on. We want to focus on building the structure. So we have 5 different roles of communication, or actually like 6, something like this. Okay, we have some roles. Okay, we have the warding coordinator. We have the jungle and roam tracker. We have the summoner spell. Yeah, no, don't forget that. We have the cooldown tracker in certain fights. We have the lane assigner. We have the target selector and primary caller and secondary caller. And what they all mean, I'm going to go in more detail now. So we
just have 5 players.
Yes. So so what? So what?
I mean, someone has to take multiple
What?
roles.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
no.
smart. Okay.
No way, dog. No, but about some of the roles, let's say lane assigner, you didn't have it all game, right? You have it like in some situations you say like once and you're done with it. So you don't have like the role isn't like about the constant game.
Yeah, it's about lane swap and
Everything,
stuff like that. Yeah.
So we have, for example, the warding coordinator. That's basically mostly the support. In combination with the jungler maybe, like, because you will need a jungler to ward a lot of times. So that's basically the one that calls, hey, I want to ward now, and then you gotta work around when to ward and how to ward. Like, so when you, let's say you say, hey, I want to ward now, then your AD carry knows, okay, we gotta push the wave out now, or like have the wave differently so we have time window for the warding. And maybe even have your jungler like, okay, he wants to ward, I'm gonna clear my camp now, and then move to him to help him ward, and so he's safe and blah blah. Of course, depends on like when the game is, like early game, late game, mid game, whatever. But like that's basically the warding coordinator. So like you talk about when to ward, where you want to ward, and then you go and ward because everyone knows, and then you're gonna be able to do it. That's the warding coordinator. That's mostly the support. So
Okay.
yeah. We have the jungle and roam tracker, which is like mostly mid laner and jungler, because jungler obviously has the most time to look at the map, has like the most time to see, oh, this guy's missing, guys, he's roaming bot lane, or he's moving there and there. And of course, jungle tracking also self-explanatory. And they can tell, yo, jungler most likely is going to be there. Because also a pretty important thing that the jungler always speaks about where who is, or like where the enemy jungler is, because that's mostly his part, right? Because he knows the jungle so well, he should also know where the enemy jungler is a lot of times. And then he can call it out, because that's mostly jungler's job, like calling jungle out. So it's basically whenever it's needed or necessary, talk about where the enemy jungler is, where the enemy mid laner is going to roam, or where the support is going to roam, and all that stuff. So it's basically roam tracker. We have then, I also noted down here that we have someone that notes down summoner spells. We already talked about it yesterday. The support should really get used to writing it down and like, noting it, because every summoner spell is important. So we always want to note them down. If it's a flash, even an ignite, like ignite is like 180 seconds, which isn't a lot, but still, is something we want to know. And the important thing about that is though, like you have to do it very efficiently, because you want to spend the least time you can on typing in the game. So you want to type it like as fast as you can, as good as you can. Let's say you have a big fight and you can't exactly say when, then you'd rather be like safe and go like 10 seconds back than you think it is, so you have like a safe time. Because if you want to call, like, write down a flash timer and you don't know exactly when, then you rather want to have it earlier up than later, because then you think, yeah, he doesn't have flash for 5 seconds, but he has flash, and then you use the fight and so on. Right, perfect. So yeah, you should definitely get used to noting down these things. But also, mid lane, top lane, jungle, everyone has to basically sometimes do it when a top laner sees, yo, my top lane just teleported, he probably has to write it down because support can't, or whatever. So like, just keep it in mind that everyone has to do it at some point.
I ping it normally if someone TPs or flashes.
Yeah.
Yeah, ping is pretty bad. Not bad, but like
if I ping it, then the support can time it later because the timestamp is in the chat.
yeah, works. Yeah, good idea. Perfect. And yeah, and if our support gets used to it, then it's gonna go pretty natural at some point. Then we're gonna have a pretty good structure in there as well. Then we have the next role, which is the cooldown tracker in fights, and this is the role that everyone has to take at some point, but it's a pretty important one. Let's say you have a 2v2 fight in top lane against Renekton or something. Then you know Renekton uses W, and then you have let's say the top laner should probably have like an estimate time of what the cooldown is, right?
Yes.
So what's the cooldown of Renekton W?
Without or with CDR?
Without.
Pretty long, like 12 seconds.
I mean, I think the base cooldown is 13, but yeah, it's pretty good. Like 12 is a pretty good number. So then you have in your head, you can that's like pretty much the thing about laning, which you all probably know. Like having the 12 seconds you had, and you can call to your jungler, for example, in the 2v2 skirmish you have there. He still hasn't W, guys, or he still has no E. And then you have like the thing. That's what I mean with the cooldown tracker in certain fights. And this is important in 2v2s, 3v3s, 4v4s, or even 5v5s at some point. Because everyone has to think, yo, this cooldown is down, but maybe only you saw and the rest of the team didn't. That's why it's so important to speak about it. Because you gotta share the info you have. So it's a cooldown tracker. So everyone has that in their mind. Then we have the lane assigner, which is what he already talked about, lane swaps, mid game, late game, where goes who, and so on. And that's basically, it's something probably all of you have to do, but it would be nice if someone has to overall, like in general, the role for it, because then it's much easier to follow. Because then let's say the top lane or mid lane only have to follow the call and don't have to think, yo, where should I be right now? And so on. So like that's basically calling where who goes. Like let's say mid game, yo, mid lane go bot lane goes mid lane and stuff. That's what the one should call basically, and that's what we like want to have. We also want to have like a structure in the game that could plan, yo, I should be bot lane right now, guys, so go mid lane and so on, because we never want to be lost. We never want to be air ramming or all that stuff. We know our solo queue because it's not solo queue. Then the next one is the target selector. And this is the one that you already used a lot, which is pretty good, because that means basically the one member in the team that has the most DPS calls out the target he's hitting. Because if the target with the highest DPS calls out the target he's hitting, then you know who's gonna get a lot of DPS on. And then you can probably in a lot of times switch the focus and have focus one member down as a team. Of course, it always depends on the fight how you do it, because like top lane can't just go backline now, like go from the enemy AD carry to the tank to help focus down, blah blah blah. It's pretty self-explanatory how to do it, but like it's a pretty important thing to always call out the target to hitting as a primary DPS character. So that's a target selector, mostly the high DPS card. Then we have the primary call and then the secondary caller. So the primary caller is the main shot caller, and he's basically God. So if he calls something, everyone basically has to listen to it, because that's the most simple way. So if he shot calls, yo, we do Nash right now, then our mid laner doesn't go for catching Pyke, then he goes for Nash or whatever. Just, a random example here. But yeah, if there's a call of the main shot call, then everyone has to follow it no matter what. Of course, you can like ask, yo, is that really the right call? But after all, it's better to follow a call as 5 than to have 2 calls in one team and split like 2, 3 or whatever. And then there's the secondary caller, who is the person that calls when God has no idea, or God is like somewhere lost. That's basically Jesus, what I noted down here. So if God doesn't know what to do, then we have Jesus in there, basically deciding what to do now. Of course, like the second part, basically Jesus is basically anyone most of the time, because it's hard to like determine like a first caller, secondary caller, blah blah blah. Then like the secondary caller is basically anyone. Anyone can be Jesus in here. So you just like call, yo, we should do this and this if like the main caller doesn't have an idea. In general, the whole calling thing is always a team thing, but there should always be like one main guy who's like, yo, I'm shot calling, and so on. So these are the 5 roles we have here. I can also like post them in there if you need to remember them better or whatever. But yeah, these main 5 roles are very important to build a structure for a team, because it's just much easier if you have these things in your head, and these like, especially primary caller, that's like a very important one that we have to figure out who's gonna be it. And to figure that out, it's gonna take time, experience as a team to know, yo, I think this guy can call the best, or this guy, and whatever. Like the most vocal player or whatever. Like I don't know how you think about it right now, what you think who's the best shot call in here, but you guys gotta figure it out for sure. And we'll help you with that because we can hear you guys. So yeah, these are the 5 roles we have. Like the actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 roles we have. And I hope you all understood every single role, and so on. These roles will definitely help us if you all know them. Then we have, so this is like basically how we're gonna use it to the maximum. Of course, we're not gonna use it to the maximum from the start because that's just way too hard. Like I already explained, the communication is the most important and the hardest part about League. About competitive play at least. In solo queue, it's, slash me all and play the game, but like, in competitive play, it's like, this is the most important thing that every team struggles with. No matter how high the team is, they're still gonna struggle with it at some point. Because it's just incredibly hard. So yeah, but if we like follow the structure, it gets easier over time and it gets better over time and all that stuff. So the next thing we have is that we have to trust the structure. So let's say we have a game where we're following our routine, our structure of like the calls and stuff, and it's not working out for some reason. So what we cannot do in that case is say, yo, the system sucks, let's stop using it and go for like a different kind of structure we built in that game, because that doesn't work. Rather than giving up the structure we have and going for a new one, rather try to work on why it's not working and figure out why it's not working. Because fixing a structure that's already there is always better than making a new one. If you get what I mean by that. Everyone gets it? Yeah? Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Indeed.
Okay. And then I also noted down here the final words, basically, like in the extra notes or whatever. Like I already said like 2 times, don't expect to work immediately, because I already said it's like really important, really hard. So it will take time, but we'll get to it eventually. We are in the early stages of a team that's building, right? And the team started, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or whatever. And it's gonna take a while till we get somewhere, and it's gonna take a while to be good enough for certain things. Yesterday's performance was pretty good, and like the communication instantly like got so much better after the first game. And I think if we all work on it can get pretty good if we have like the right structure through it and get the routine and get all the stuff we need for it. So, like, just keep being motivated no matter if we lose or win, and just like keep working on the stuff we learn and want to improve on. Then, so yeah. Any questions so far about the whole thing?
Do you sorry? Do you already have ideas for certain
Roles.
roles?
So the most roles are obviously for certain fights. Like target selector is pretty obvious. You get to roll. Lane assigner is like hard to say because it's, like, I don't really have an idea yet of who can shot call the best. But we gonna figure out. Do you guys have any idea? Like, let's say for who of you guys is the best shot caller? Like, who of you guys has the most like game knowledge and stuff? Has anyone any idea?
Not everyone. Not everyone.
Oh,
in
we have some
What's
pretty
Guys.
good ideas. All right, yeah. Yeah, but that's what I thought. Like, cause we only played such a few games, it's like difficult to say. We can we have of course we have some ways to figure it out. Like we could, as example, go into scrims and say, yo, only this guy shot calls, or only this guy makes big calls, and then everyone has to follow it. And then we can see where it works the best and figure out who is the best one for it. But yeah. That's also a thing I think that's gonna we're gonna learn it over time when we get more games in, when we get more scrims and stuff. So yeah, that's pretty good. Like talking about communication today is just like a small start, so everyone has like the idea behind, and everyone understands the communication. And obviously the 5 roles are like 7, 8 roles we have here are also pretty like, maybe you guys probably same. You probably knew about some of these roles or about the core effect of these roles, but like noting them down, having them in your mind again is pretty much good. So yeah. About shot calling, it's like most of the times it's either support or jungler because they have the least, like especially in early game, mid game, they have like the least to do basically.
Huh.
I mean, weird to say, but that's basically how it is because they don't have a lane, they don't have to focus on the most things, and that's why the jungler can oftenly call the stuff. Plus, the jungler has to path around these things, so his preparation is mostly the hardest part about the objectives example. Like if there's a dragon up, he has to move around. Like, he has to path his jungle efficiently so he doesn't lose golden XP. For example. So if the support and jungler, okay, actually an important thing is the communication between your jungler and support is very important. So you guys better become best friends. Because the warding works together, the roaming works together a lot. Like if the support roams mid lane, the jungler can be there as well for a 3-man thing. And all that stuff. So the jungle and support synergy is pretty important, as well as the support and AD carry communication and synergy. So you guys also need to duo queue. So like our support just gotta play duo queue all day. Like 5 hours with the jungle, 5 hours with the AD carry, 10 hours solo queue sounds good, right? No? Okay, got it.
I kind of feel like a bitch right now. Yeah, here.
Hey,
you
listen, buddy.
First with him 2 hours, then with him 2 hours.
Listen, buddy.
Why-
Earlier you wanted to be a bitch, and now you're complaining of what?
Listen, buddy.
So earlier you were complaining, and now earlier you wanted to be that one, but now you don't want to be it anymore. Like, what's going on there in your head?
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But I'm looking just for one daddy.
Oh my god. Listen, your parents are gay. That's it.
Oh no.
Yeah. Sorry for
Oh,
breaking
no.
it. Sorry for breaking it to you, but
Hmm.
gotta be what it gotta be. So yeah, that's like because for obvious reasons, like the jungle support communication I already explained is pretty important for warding and all that stuff. But in general, all of you should like become best friends, basically, become a family and all that stuff, so you can have the best team communication behind it. It's always a pretty important thing for teams because the best working teams are teams that are fairly close to each other. So like teams that know each other and like just like stand for each other basically and all that stuff. So yeah, keep that in your mind and become friends. I wish there was something like I wish there was like an actual challenge ladder for like team ranked, but there just isn't. There's Flexia, but no. But yeah, get to know each other, get closer, just become something that's close to a team. Or actually become a team, that would also be pretty good. I feel like that's it for the most part. We have like the most important things about communication, why it's important. We talked about why it's important. We talked about what it is. We talked about that nothing is meaningless as long as an information for the team. So everyone knows about everything. We talked about the roles that we're gonna determine who's for what in the next weeks of scrimming or the next months or whatever it is. How much time it ever takes to figure it out because it's just difficult for a starting team to figure out. Just always have in your mind that you guys are the start and you guys can get anywhere basically. If you keep the mentality up, work on it pretty good and all that stuff. Also, a very important part about communication is that in a lot of teams I've seen so far that when the game goes bad, they don't talk much. And that's a thing that should never be allowed to happen. Because if the communication breaks when we start losing, then it gets pretty difficult. So always try to talk about the plan. What I figured out, yeah. It's just him, right? Yeah, it is him, okay. What I also heard yesterday and saw yesterday is that you don't talk about the plan of the game enough. Like, let's say the jungler, because the jungler makes the most plans, right? Because he wants to gank there, gank here, and blah blah blah. So, he should be talking about the game plan constantly. Same for where the enemy jungler is and stuff. So I want to hear you guys in game speak about what's the next objective, what's the next plan, what are we going to do in the next 5 minutes, next 10 minutes, what's the game plan, and all that stuff, because that's in the end very important for the whole game and for the whole like structure in the game. Like I never want anyone to be autopiloting because that's the worst that could happen. Because we all know if we autopilot, it just doesn't go good. The thing for also every player in itself is that they gotta like always think about everything they do. That's an important part for solo queue or even ranked, team ranked, blah blah, all that stuff. Because if you even in solo queue, if you autopilot and get used to certain things you do, then it doesn't help you improve. Sure, you might think solo queue improving, nice joke, buddy, but like mechanically and in certain things, it's still gonna be improvement, even if it's just small things. So yeah, I want to hear you guys in the next scrim we have talking about the plan, talking about the next objective, talking about the whole thing. Everyone understood that, right?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Perfect.
course.
Oh, okay. All right. Sounds pretty good. Do we have questions?
No.
All right. Did I forget anything? I don't think I did. Do you guys have any more note, like anything you think I didn't say about communication that everyone should know that's pretty important or anything in that direction?
Kind of. I
Alright.
mean, just my opinion. I mean, we will have, okay, the main shot
Yeah.
caller, like you call them, the god, and then we have
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean if they both make a shit call that the rest of the team has to be silent.
No,
I
of
just
course
want to
not.
say this. I mean, I don't know who's gonna be who, but
Yeah.
if I'm not one of the two shot callers and I think their call is shit, I will say it.
Okay, so let's say the situation is the main shot caller makes a terrible ass call, and you disagree with it. What
Yes.
happens if you then you speak up and say, "Yo, wait, what the fuck, man? That call sucks. Come on, dude." So what happens then?
I don't know.
So what's the
Because
plan?
I don't know
then?
who I'm talking to.
Exactly. Okay. But what is the plan if you disagree with the call? What do you have to do
Well,
then?
I really hope that we don't do that call then. That he rethinks his decision.
Okay, let's say person X thinks, "Yo, no, what the fuck? No, the call is genius. That's the best call we can make here." What happens then?
GG, well played, AFK.
No. You follow the call anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have to follow.
Yes.
And if it goes wrong,
Then it
I
goes
can
wrong.
say I
Then
said so.
Then shit
then-
happens, and we talk about it after game, I guess.
perfect. Then after the game you go, "Well, what the fuck, man? I told you, man. Come on, dog." Then you talk about it and you have the idea, "Yo, that wasn't the best call," and then he knows, okay, cool. For next time I know, yeah, I shouldn't do that call. Because we only learn by doing mistakes, right? And that's how you learn off that call. And if you then think, if you in general think, "Yo, I don't think this main shot call is quite doing the thing we need," then you, I don't know, hit me up or hit Flibble up or even hit the guy up and say, "Yo, I don't think your shot calling is the best. I think we should go for something else, man." And then we'll rethink the whole thing. If he's a shot caller, we'll rethink the whole thing and build and improve the structure we have. And maybe then you're gonna be the shot caller next game, Maybe then you, with the mastermind of seeing this bad call, are gonna be able to make
It
better
was
calls
just
the next
an
game.
example.
Yeah, I'm just saying that if anyone ever thinks there's a problem in the structure, you should always be open with it. Because as you guys said to me and Philip, when we started the whole thing, we had the introduction lesson, you said that you expect honesty. And
Yes.
the same I can give back, because if you guys think that my idea or mine and Philip's idea about structure and all that stuff is stupid, or there's something that you don't like about it, then you should open up and say, "Yo, I think this idea, this role there is not good and we shouldn't have it, or we shouldn't do this and that." Then we can have a conversation about it and improve it the way it fits the best for the team. because all these things I'm saying here are main ideas about communication, but they can always like slightly change for certain teams because they're just different from other teams. And that's why it's very important to talk about the whole, like about every problem you have for certain things. Actually, it's funny because it also, it also is communication between you and me. It's not only about the team, it's also communication to the coaches. Because a coach can't help you if you don't open yourself up to the help, basically. So yeah. Any more points we have to add to the list?
I don't think right now.
Anyone else has any ideas?
Nope.
Guess not.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you guys learn today?
10-10.
-10.
Alright, I
He's
see.
on-
Alright.
Well,
That sounds pretty good.
I guess I learned itself not that much because I know these roles have to be filled. It's just different from solo queue. I mean, this is the first team I'm actively playing in, and so I guess I learned the importance of these roles. I guess.
As I already explained, it's not only about like I already said, most of you probably know most of these things, and like they probably already heard about them because even in solo queue and all that stuff, you know. But I just want to have them like re-talk about them and rethink it all, and so you have it in your head again. Be right back.
What?
What?
He's gone.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I just want you guys to remember all of these things, and, like have them like just knowing them and hearing them again is always a different thing, because if you hear something again, you might think about it again and have like different endings of the thoughts about it and all that stuff. If you kind of get what I'm saying.
Of course.
Yeah, I think that should be pretty much it about the whole thing. I feel like I've been kind of short or kind of fast about it, but I don't know what else I forgot or whatever I didn't add. Otherwise, just gonna have the same lesson once a week, so we all know. Yeah, I'm kidding. But yeah, I think that should basically be it for today. If you have any questions about anything about today or anything else, always feel free to ask. Then yeah, we're gonna have it all down.